Here we are, avid listener. Welcome to the AI Ecosystem Podcast. I am your host, Bob Moore. Here with me is my trusty, faithful partner in building my business, ChatGPT. And Lindsay's here. Hey, Lindsay, how you doing? We also have Lindsey DeFalco, our #1 product leader here at Crossbeam and Crossbeam OG for many years. How you doing, Lindsay?
Great. Really happy to
Right.
be here along with you and ChatGPT.
Yeah. Is there what are we doing here? This is a podcast. This is presumably our first episode. We had so many conversations going on about AI internally, many of them for the benefit of the company that we were publishing for our staff to see, many of them behind closed doors, a lot of them about discovery and understanding of the space. And it just felt like every time we brought these conversations out into the public, they were well received and sparked even more conversation. And we thought, why not record these things and maybe we will help somebody else maybe understand what's going on in the world of AI more actively and regularly there. Does that, I don't know. Why do you think we're here?
Yeah, I think that tracks. I think it's both what we're doing internally with AI, what we're seeing both our customers and people in the space doing with AI, how that ties in really well with what is going on in ecosystems more broadly in that whole market, and how all of those things play together. And plus, people love my bad jokes and requested that I record them so that they could listen to them whenever.
So I was thinking since it's our first episode of the year, it's like an inaugural episode here. We just yesterday at Crossbeam had our January annual strategy memo, like kickoff presentation, which is me in front of the company for an hour running through kind of a TED Talk style keynote about what we are going to spend our time and energy on in the year ahead and the strategy for the business. But the thing from it that I felt may be fun to talk about a little bit is the large focus that we are going to have on being very smart, effective consumers of AI as a company and what we want that to look like as a business. And looking at the last year and some of the progress we've made on that front and some reflection on like how that's going to be shaped. I think when we were developing the strategy memo, you had a lot of really interesting input on that. Do you want to talk at all about like, I don't know, this idea of the difference between the siloed ownership and what it means to bring people along?
Yeah, definitely. So this is when we've talked about AI internally, we always talk about how, it's not just one dimension. There's a lot of different dimensions in which you can talk about your company being, AI ready, AI focused, AI enabled, and the different facets really span all the different ways that a business operates. So, we can talk about building AI products. We can talk about how we're building products to work in AI ecosystems. And then we can also talk about how we are using AI internally and how we are enabling our team to be experts in AI for whatever that means in their specific functions. We've also observed in terms of how companies are actually doing the latter, which is getting AI embedded into their company processes and what that looks like in terms of who's doing it, how they're structuring their organization, and what that looks like. So, one thing we've noticed and that we have done ourselves is that most people start with one person. Maybe hopefully they have ops experience, maybe they have engineering experience, maybe it's a founder. I've heard it all and we've done it all too. And they start with a pet project and they're saying, okay, how can we create, maybe it's a Slack bot, maybe it's an assistant. And then it really just kind of expands and grows from there. And so I think the question, Bob, that's interesting to get into is like, all right, so, companies start in this kind of exploratory phase of how AI can help their company. And they start it with, a single person, maybe a small team, but then what happens after that? And how are people actually growing that into having it embedded in their operations and having it be how they actually operate the business?
Yeah. Here's the thing that's like shocking to me over the course of this last year, which is as we've rolled out our own kind of increasingly, I'll just call it AI compatible capabilities, right? So our MCP server, building more kind of data products that are directly consumable by warehouses and other destinations that are consumed by AI, and on and on. It has blown my mind. We sell to some enterprise companies that have like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. We sell to mid-market companies with many hundreds of employees. We sell to startups with 5 people. No matter who it is, when you start to talk to them about AI, talking to our users and our owners, they always just mention some person's name. It's always like, hey, oh, that's Carl. Carl's doing that. He's like standing over the thing, or like, oh yeah, Meredith is she's building the internal like AI bot thing that powers it all. And we're guilty of that too, because that was bit like Matt Nicosia, who runs a startup called Zayer now, was that person for us for a year or so there. And I think if anybody said, hey, are you building some kind of crazy internal AI contraption? It was just like some dude. Sorry, Matt, to classify you as some dude. Your company has 5,000 employees, and every single employee at the company is like, oh, yeah, Peter owns that. So it is, it validates what you're saying, because there's something about the way that ownership of this stuff has emerged inside of these businesses that's been very much an opportunity for ambitious, intellectually curious people who have been able to like be aggressive about pulling this stuff forward. But B, it also talks about maybe like organizational readiness and just how low it's been, and how it's been a little bit of like a totally free market inside the economies of work in these companies to see where and how this ownership bubbles up, and a little bit of survival of the fittest, right? And who can build the coolest contraption that actually makes it out to production scale. So what's weird though is in a lot of these cases, that person probably ends up in going and buying some product like Glean or something else, right? Where the homegrown slapped together thing ends up getting swallowed by something that's got a little bit more of a software backing to it. But nonetheless, even the owner of the Glean implementation, in a lot of cases, it just feels like some very, very crafty growth engineer or data person or internal ops person or founder or whatever who just kind of takes the ball and runs with it. Which I don't know that I can point to in my career like another moment where something like that has emerged with that exact characteristic. And frankly, it makes it kind of hard to sell to that persona as well, right? If you have a pre-existing technology product that's being used in a lot of these companies, like normally if we release a new SKU or a new piece of functionality and it's for the sales persona, we'll go to the CRO and we'll go to like sales leaders. Or if it's, going to live in the ops world, we find the VP of ops. What's funny about our AI stuff is all of these people just kind of point to Carl. And then you've got to go into this whole other net new department that ironically is built to really serve horizontally the entire company and is not meant to be siloed. So anyway, I guess that actually kind of like ties back to the strategy memo pretty well, because the whole point in the strategy memo is like my goal for this year at Crossbeam is to bring everybody along. And I call out in that strategy memo, like I think we're ahead of most companies when it comes to internal AI adoption and like the availability of tools and the general appetite and understanding of how to apply AI against building our business. But I think it is in a really, really bad state as it relates to concentration. Like we have these very specific choke points. We have these very clear internal owners of AI and AI systems. And I love that our team is empowered to come up with great ideas about where to deploy AI and that they get to do that stuff. But it does also feel like, if our small but mighty couple of person large now AI ops team doesn't literally do the work, it doesn't happen. And that's what I worry about with these siloed team structures and all these companies that we're observing. It's like there's going to be a lot of people that get left behind that almost have this like level of learned helplessness where, you kind of have the people who know how to create outcomes with AI, and then you've got the people that know how to talk to ChatGPT, and it stops there. And that feels like a model that I don't want to have happen to Crossbeam because of what it means for the rest of the careers of all the people that aren't in that small group. And I think that's one of the things we're like putting a responsibility on our own leadership team to help figure out this year, which is like, how do we bring everybody else along?
Yeah. And I think it, you mentioned this is one of the only times you can remember where this has been true. And without a company bringing people along, what it does is it really favors people with that startup mindset. And that's mentality, because those, singular AI people that you talk to at the companies are literally having conversations with tools across the business and needing to understand the main use cases of all of their different internal departments in a way that just wasn't as present or relevant before. What is also, I listened to this podcast. I wish I could remember who said it. I think it was
Hey, don't plug other podcasts. People are just gonna get just go listen to this other podcast.
Yeah, cut that.
We need all we can get around here.
So somebody said that AI will just become synonymous with software, and I think that's very true. And we're not there yet. We're in the time period where we're defining what that means. a lot of what you were talking about in terms of having this siloed and that is working on potentially siloed projects or doing projects across the company. It's also just really reflective of where the technology is and where AI is in general in terms of being enterprise ready. So one thing I've always struggled with, and I think other people do as well, is like what's hype and what's reality. What are companies actually doing with AI internally? What's actually deployed, or what's a pet project? I've talked to many companies where it's like, our founder Bob has some AI assistant and it runs alongside our other AI person's assistant, and they're basically just competing. We hear about all these advancements that are happening at the big AI players, but we don't necessarily hear all the details about, okay, are these things enterprise grade? Are they production ready? Can they be deployed within these large enterprise organizations and, talk across all of their different vendors and systems? Is the technology actually there yet? And so what's interesting in the past month or so is that the industry has been making big moves in that direction. So you have Linux founded the, I believe, Agentic AI Foundation. I might have one of those A's switched up. And it's really about all of these standards and protocols that the different big players, like you have Anthropic, you have OpenAI, and you have Google, ensuring that these are all standards that can be both monitored and controlled by the entire industry so that people can feel comfortable and safe building their enterprise level operations and infrastructures on top of them. So I also think that's something outside of just, bringing the people along inside the company. It's ensuring that the technology is there. And so I think we're all kind of running at this, building the plane as it's
Yeah.
starting to fly, as they say, with all of this.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about, and we don't have the answers here yet, but I do love just like exploring ideas of how to actually bring your entire company along. Because I've heard, I met with one company that's a customer of ours somewhat recently where the CEO is mandating that this like multi-thousand person company, every single person gets certified on N8N and how to build like their own agents in N8N, which inherently means like stitching a bunch of different systems together and understanding what MCP is and kind of building system prompts and all that kind of stuff. I feel more power to them, especially N8N. Who knows what kind of services revenue they get off of those kind of deals. And I think, what that kind of thing will do is maybe activate inside of a top 2% of the company. Like it'll awaken something that they hadn't yet put the dots together on their own. And maybe those 2% of the people will do really amazing things and it'll be transformative. I'm not sure for the other 98% that like taking people from literally having never written a line of code in their lives to building like infrastructure is the right 0 to 1. But I offer that criticism without being able to think of like what is the right 0 to 1. And it feels to a certain extent just like the thing we've done that I think everybody's done, but that I feel like has been the most transformative is just building our own wickedly powerful, wickedly well-connected Slack bot, the AI assistant, which is the thing Nikosha built and that Marius and Margot and our AI ops team today have maintained, which is like this thing is so cool. It's the number one thing that I talk to the most on Slack. I kind of joke that ChatGPT is like my co-pilot co-host here, but it's probably aside from you, like the number one thing I might go talk to try to figure out what to even have as a topic in one of these podcasts. Cause it just knows a lot and it's been able to become like this pretty powerful lifeblood of the company. And I don't know, as a stepping stone, that feels like a really good step 0, because for people that have figured out how to incorporate ChatGPT, or even their Google search has now been taken over by AI and they're like in an AI world, they can at least adapt that over to the workplace and get more effective and more efficient. I guess the question is what's step 1 beyond step 0? And it feels like it's something about the leap from like consuming the news to making the news. Like how do you deploy the AI and like doing your job?
Mhm.
I don't know. How are you thinking about this with the product team? Like what is the
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's you're mentioning the example of everyone building some sort of end flow, and it's like, do we right now expect everyone to be able to use Zapier? Do our sales reps need to know how to build any end flows? What is something I'm particularly fascinated by, I think, because I sit at this intersection of the technology, product, and the go-to-market team, is like, what do people need to know in their roles? And is it that, the go-to-market team at the end of the day really just needs to be consuming tools, and it's more on, both the organization and the leaders of the organization to ensure that that team is operating in an AI native way versus any of the actual, people on the team understanding, how AI workflows work, what MCP is, et cetera. And I liken it to APIs in some way, just because it's a technical concept that companies have had to explain and sell historically. And, unless you're at a company that sells APIs, then as a seller, do you need to know much about APIs? Probably not, right? Anyway, interface with them is going to be through an application. So I say this all to say, like, I'm curious to see where the knowledge about the raw technology versus the knowledge of how to use applications and what AI is capable of through these applications, I think is going to be where different roles end up moving in different directions. So for the product team specifically, I think about it in a similar way. It's, one, what tools can the team use to make themselves more efficient and, to use a cliche, to 10x themselves. And it's, they should all be using UI prototyping tools to be able to visually represent their ideas. They absolutely should be working with ChatGPT to write out PRD and to brainstorm. And there's some things like that where it's just, candidly kind of a waste of time to start from scratch on some things when you don't need to. But then there's this question of, what does product development look like in the AI era? And, you see a lot of these AI native companies, and to use one of your favorite expressions, the Venn diagram of work that a product manager, a product designer, and an engineer do, there's an overlap in the middle. And what I see AI doing is condensing that Venn diagram so that there's a heavier overlap in the middle of what a designer can do, what a product manager can do, and what an engineer can do. So, for example, a product manager can make a design prototype and then turn that into a real life code. And so, maybe it's not production ready, it's not embedded in our production environment, but that's a much bigger piece of the Venn diagram than they used to have access to. And that's all using AI. And so the same with design. They can also make code prototypes now. They could write PRDs with ChatGPT super easily. And the same with engineering. So what I think is interesting, and I've seen in a lot of organizations, is they generally have a blend of these roles. And it depends on the product type, the strength of the founders, and generally the culture of the company. But, you'll see things like product engineers. You'll see things like product managers and designers. You'll see things that are designers that are also front-end engineers. And so there's this interesting condensing of the roles. And so that's really how I'm thinking about it, is twofold. It's like, if you're an individual contributor, really thinking about how AI can make you significantly better at your job. And then if you're leading a team, it's what does your team's capability as a whole look like with the technology that's getting created by AI?
Yeah. It is, look, part of this whole phrase of bringing people along, right? I feel like it's a little disingenuous to not say the thing behind the thing, which is when you say we're going to bring everybody along, what you're also saying is that we're not going to leave anybody behind. And when you say we're not going to leave anybody behind, what you're really saying is that we don't want to have to fire anybody because they're not useful anymore, or because their level of contribution has not kept up with where the expectations are for how someone can contribute who is able to leverage AI effectively. And what's particularly scary out there in the job market right now, or as a person who is a producer of work and work product, is if you do get left behind and you don't have a job anymore because you couldn't play ball in the AI era inside of your current company, it's going to be really hard to get a job at another company. And if you can, it's probably going to be at a company that has failed to adopt AI, and therefore their efficiency and their velocity and everything else will be lower, and the viability of that business will be less likely, right? And it's the participation in the innovation economy, the participation in the technology economy as a human, as a worker, as a thinker, is kind of tethered to the ability to get leverage out of AI systems. And that's the thing that I kind of am impressing upon all of our people managers and our team members right now, I think, which is the answer to what leverage is might be totally different for a product manager than it is for an engineer, than it is for someone on a people or a recruiting team or anywhere else. But you've got to believe fundamentally that leverage can be created. And there is a little bit of that entrepreneur's mindset that you mentioned that has to be applied by everybody, because we can't from the top down walk through every single job function inside the entire company and spoon feed, hey, here's the new way for you to do your best work. I think what we need to look to is for individual team members and direct managers of people to take some large amount of ownership and initiative around looking at the jobs to be done, the way that work gets done. And look, some of the stuff should stay exactly the same, and AI is just going to get in the way. There's going to be a ton of AI solutions that you could just spend a lot of money on, and they're going to stink, and they're going to not be worth the trouble. I can think of a few of those that we've attempted to implement already. But when the ones that work, they make up for all the rest, and like 10 times over. I'm like, you still become 10x even with all the kludge of the stuff that didn't work and the experimentation and discovery. But like, I think that's kind of the message I'm trying to send to our team is there's a certain amount of agency that we want to provide that is not just about being able to, do experimentation with this stuff, but it's around being able to like reimagine the very nature of the role that you are in and try to see around the corners for that. And we'll do everything we can to help. But I think the people that are really going to thrive are going to be the ones who run out ahead of their manager's manager, like figuring it out for them.
Yeah.
And that's a tall order. Like that wasn't in anybody's job description who signed up for their jobs. And it was like, I'm talking about Crossbeam here, but like this is likely true at basically any technology company out there that existed prior to the ChatGPT moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's something that can be disconcerting and scary for a lot of people. And it's because, everyone who is in a role has a career goal. They have a career ladder. There's webinars and conferences, and everything that has been built up around all these roles is very much in a, traditional pre-AI SaaS era. And so what's interesting is that, even if you in your role are doing everything you think you need to be doing, if your organization is not supporting you getting up to speed and learning, how your role might change or what might look different, then, they're doing you a disservice. And I think that also goes for making sure as an organization that you're supporting people looking outside the box, right? Like if there's somebody in a specific role, they're just going to look for solutions within their specific role. But you want those people to be thinking about, how the end goal that they're trying to achieve can be achieved differently. And that may mean stepping on people's toes traditionally. But that's the kind of thing I think that will help get team members excited about it too, right? And I think like focusing everyone on what the ultimate goal is and not like what their specific role is in terms of the kind of, old, like you do these things and that's success. But all that's getting redefined in a way that makes things really kind of chaotic right now.
Yeah. I think it might be fun, and we should have prepared for this, but top of the dome, let's do rapid fire, like actual real world tangible examples of real things that we have seen that kind of fall into that 10x, hey, it's working, hey, it's making jobs like profoundly better bucket. I think that would be like really, really worthwhile. And you can say the most obvious possible things, but let's try to rapid fire some, because I think it'll make this whole conversation a little more tangible.
Yeah. Are you talking like specific examples at our company or
Anywhere.
is there
I
something
think it's
wild?
even actually cooler if you've seen it at some other company and we're not doing it at Crossbeam, because I think it's probably like hey, why aren't we doing this at Crossbeam discussion? But yeah, I think anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll give a quick Crossbeam specific one, which is that our CTO, who aggressively uses Claude Code and AI, messaged me last week and was like, "Oh, hey, I built this new data source in Data Push. Should we launch it?" And it's something that, in pre-AI era would probably go through a whole cycle of needing to get planned and going to a team and, take enough time that somebody like Alex, who's, incredibly busy, couldn't just do it in, I don't know how long it took him, but that's something where he's like actively contributing to code in a way that was less feasible before because of the time involved.
It's wild. Was it Databricks?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. All right, great. Waiting on that Databricks
Yeah.
export. That's great. Yeah, I love that one. There's one that I benefited from today that I didn't even realize that we had, which is our own internal AI bot. It now has these like routines built into it. So in addition to being able to take like an unstructured prompt, there are kind of subsystem prompts that can get triggered if certain phrases or keywords or requests get made. And one of them is to ask for just a dossier on a company. So it used to be that I'd have to say, hey, internal bot, can you give me a dossier? I got a call with Shopify coming up. Give me a dossier. I want to know who their main users are, who's the sales rep that owns it, how much are they paying us, what's, based on the last couple of gone calls, what are their top value propositions? What are the risks? Has anybody changed jobs recently? Whatever. My query would get kind of long because I'd say all these things I need to know. At some point in time, the ops team must have seen enough of these kinds of requests coming in, and they've built like a template so that now if you just say like, give me a dossier, it gives you this super badass structured, it's like the totality of all of the stuff that anyone has asked for in any of their dossiers in the past, all like consolidated and coalesced into this like cohesive thing. And I just asked like a relatively simple question about an account that someone offered to intro me into, and I got this like beautiful memo basically about it. And I think that's where, if you have access to all of the data, it starts to become, people talk about workflows and like how to actually make this stuff practical. Just seeing that stuff magically, spontaneously appear through the channels I'm already using to get this information is like so awesome. And it just scales wickedly well. Thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I actually I got sent one of those this morning by one of our customer success reps because I have a call with one of their clients later. And normally I'd have to go, maybe ask like, hey, what's this call about? Because it's January 7th and I don't remember anything from here. But she proactively sent me, hey, this is, all the context you need about this account. This is the context of the call. And, it includes their usage data. It includes past conversations. It includes feedback they've submitted for product. Yeah, that would have been something that would have taken somebody like a day to prepare across all those different sources before. And it's just one question, which is incredible.
Yeah, it is. It's bonkers. All right. My next one is literally this podcast. I have the content team's been like various off and on times asking me to do a podcast for like the last 6 years. And I've had a huge amount of institutional resistance to it from, I guess I'm referring to myself as an institution, like personal resistance to it, mainly because it always bothered me so much. Like the overproduction, like podcasts by and large, I view as like ego projects. Like most people with podcasts, nobody listens to them. It'll probably be true of this one. Thanks for listening, whoever you are out there. But that doesn't bother me so much because like forcing structured conversations can trigger ideas. And if even one right person listens to it, it can be a valuable asset. What always bothered me was the production overhead associated with it. And like, I know these like dudes who sold their companies and they have a bunch of money and they don't feel relevant anymore. So they start a podcast and they have to like lease a studio and they go to the studio and they have high quality cameras and then they have an editor. And it's like they're paying thousands and thousands of dollars an episode for production and distribution. And let alone if you want to have like video clips and highlight reels and captions on it. And it just becomes this total rat's nest. And in a world where like pre-LLMs, where content and branding and polish matter because you don't want to look bush league, no self-respecting marketing team would let you just like go turn on QuickTime Recorder and record a podcast. Like they're gonna want to produce it. So I never felt like I'm happy to sit down and have conversations, but the idea that we would spend thousands of dollars an episode and also take time away from people that are on our content team who might otherwise be able to be doing things that I view as reaching more people and maybe having more impact, it's just like the math never worked for me. We right now are paying $20 a month for this Riverside product that we'll record a couple episodes a month. We won't go anywhere close to the like hours, limit cap. It is going to capture both of our video in high quality, polish it up with AI stuff so we look great, refine the vocals so that when I drop my pen in the middle of a sentence, like the click disappears, caption everything, chop it up into highlights that are like formatted for vertical video to upload automatically to LinkedIn based on the transcript and it deciding what's the most interesting, relevant stuff, and automatically syndicate the episode out to YouTube and Spotify and all your major podcast streams. And it will take less time to do all of that pre-production and post-production stuff than you and I will consume just sitting here having this conversation. And by the way, I'm sure I've said a bunch of like boring, repetitive stuff. It'll like give me recommendations for stuff to just cut. Like it'll take an hour-long conversation and turn it into 40 minutes. And by and large, it'll be right. Like we did a test episode for internal use before, and the stuff just kind of worked. And I think this is where I love what's going on with how people are combining all this stuff, because it's not just a chat in an LLM. It's like applying these models against all of those little micro value propositions and wrapping it all up into this one awesome package. It's virtually free. It's like effectively costless. Riverside, if you're listening, sorry. I would be paying more. I would be paying more. And if you wanted to live stream it too, like flip a switch, we could turn on live streaming for this conversation right now. But yeah, that's a wild one.
Yeah. I'll do one that I think is a little like bigger and more ambitious, but it kind of shows the potential of just how the technology is enabling people to think about things. So we have a couple really large enterprises who have kicked off these projects within their organizations around what they can do with agent orchestration. And so if you think about this, for an industry that has to do with everything that you can do with your partner program and in an agentic way. And what I think is really cool about this is just the conversations of the potential of bringing vendors together and what is possible across different vendors. And, for us, we're in a space where we're very much a part of a larger stack and we're a data foundation, but there's a lot of other workflow and execution layers that sit alongside us. And so the interoperability of how those applications work together is really important. So I've seen a lot of really, really cool conversations of the things that agents can do both behind the scenes, but then also what can be exposed directly to the go-to-market teams that are just going to absolutely blow people's minds once they exist. So, you
Yeah.
imagine, and it comes down to, I think, the question that sellers always ask that people have been trying to answer for years and years with different applications, which is, what should I do today? And what should I do for this account at any given time? While the question remains the same, there currently are a bunch of point solutions for it. You have, call recording companies trying to answer that question. You have CRMs answering that question. You have, customer service tools answering that question, et cetera. And it's like the power is in all of that information combined. And so there's really, really cool conversations happening about bringing all of that data together in a way where that answer is just insane and would have been impossible to give a rep, pre-AI.
Yeah, yeah. It's a part. You triggered a thought there that is like a yes and onto this, which is you in our recent customer conference, in like the minutes before your presentation, whipped up a fairly cool like interactive visual to show how some of like the data pipelines and data flows work. Which like to my knowledge, you're not a vector graphic designer for motion animation, right? But like that thing was so good that it ended up getting reused on a bunch of sales calls and other things. And it makes me think about multimedia, right? And this is maybe my next good example here, which is we from a company culture perspective, this is going to sound really corny, but I actually think it's pretty important, which is we now start every stand-up meeting. We have a stand-up meeting that's weekly for everybody at the company that happens on Zoom virtually. And we also have a monthly all hands meeting. We start those meetings and any other special occasion type meetings where we bring people together. While everybody's entering, we have a custom song playing that's been generated using Suno, the AI music generator. And as their models have gotten better and better, it has gone from, and by the way, like we give it the agenda of the meeting so that the song is about what the meeting is about to be about. So rather than a slide at the beginning that's like, here's the agenda for today's meeting, we don't even do that because you just heard like, an 80s synth rock anthem in the style of the Final Countdown about what we're going to talk about for the next 15 minutes as you were entering. So like, back when they were on their early models, they were like very cringeworthy. Like the lyrics were kind of cringy and corny, and the musical melodies were a little repetitive. It's gotten to a point now where we've got a couple of these that are like actual bangers, like real bops that, like the new Taylor Swift album had come out and people were asking for the link to the Suno song from Stand Up because they wanted to listen to what they were coding. And it's like, it's not actually supposed to be good. Like part of it is a little bit of this like, self-awareness of how kind of cringy and corny it is to do it in the first place. But what's wild is that it actually like serves to like set the tone and get people hyped. And like when I did the strategy memo meeting, I had like kind of a hype beast style, like get amped. Last year was freaking great. You guys crushed it. We got to talk about the future and it's going to be amazing. And me going in on the heels of that song makes me like go on stage feeling like I'm going to set the world on fire. And I think like gives me an energy coming out of the gate that is really, really hard to manufacture artificially on Zoom, where everybody's just showing up, with their own story and their own world and like some kind of grounding that gives people emotional alignment to bring everybody together to enter into a thought space on the same page. These corny ass Suno songs are doing something. It's like it's actually doing something to the culture of remote work. And I'll say the same thing about the like we'll do an episode on this at some point, but like I've been making these super corny. No, I won't say corny. They're fucking awesome. These amazing. I see the head bop.
Yeah.
For you audio listeners, that was like the biggest eye roll I've ever seen in my life. The AI videos, we've used them for almost everything. Our internal holiday Christmas card this year was like a claymation video featuring, most of the employees of the company to a Crossbeam style holiday song. We used a ton of them to plug our ecosystem summit conference this year. And like what started out as like kind of bad and cringy is getting like kind of creepy good. And a year from now, I think will be like people won't say AI video anymore. They'll just say video, which is, to your point about people don't say e-commerce anymore, right? It's just commerce. At some point in time, the like e-banking, it's just like, no, everybody just banks on the internet on their mobile phone. Like,
America.
cloud storage. When's the last time you bought a hard drive, right? It's just like a holding pen before you push the stuff up to Dropbox or Google Drive.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Man, that's a good laundry list. What else you got? You got anything else in the hopper there?
Yeah, I think you mentioned the prototypes, like the interactive prototypes I created for demonstrating technical concepts. That's something that I think has always been difficult, is how to, how do you visualize an API? How do you talk to people about an API without some restaurant ordering metaphor, which is also, if you ask ChatGPT, they love those too. Everyone loves a restaurant ordering metaphor to talk about. MCP, API, I used one, I'm guilty, for webhooks. So yeah, I think it's something that's been, for me in my role, being able to get my point across visually, so I'm not just trying to explain complex topics to people, is really powerful. So I've used that a lot. I created, also I'll have conversations with a bunch of our customers, and I'll just create a mock-up of something, and then I'll start pitching it around internally just to get a vibe.
Mhm.
And if people hate it, it took me 5 minutes. If people love it, great. Let's turn it into something that we can make into an actual idea. So being able to quickly prototype out a new feature or product, or create things that, previously you'd have to talk to like a product marketing designer for, in more of a low stakes way to validate the idea before it's, really production ready, has been super, super.
Mhm.
And also one other example is every month or 3 months, I have a prompt I use to get up to speed outside of all the things I regularly do in terms of what's going on in the industry and in our market with AI. And I get this like it's like a 15-page document from ChatGPT about all of the advancements and how people are building with AI, what's going on with agents, what's going on with MCP, what's going on with new standards and protocols. And then I feed that into Notebook LM. I make a podcast and I listen to it along with reading the document. And then I generally share that out with the team as well to make sure that people just have a pulse on the updates that are happening, because I'm sure as we're speaking, there's some new massive change or improvement that's happening with all the technology. So those are.
Yeah, I'm hoping in these conversations every time we get back together, it's like some earth-shattering thing has happened. Fully agree. And this is a really good grounding. And I think maybe to bring it home, like categorically, the thing that maybe we're not saying that is like almost too obvious is just like a very large part of most people's jobs in the information industry is communicating. It's receiving information and it's conveying information. And whether you are designing and organizing products, or you're managing teams, or you're selling things, or you're recruiting someone, or you're interviewing for a job, or you're pitching an investor, or you're receiving a pitch, the transfer of information between human beings is the currency that kind of allows for decision making, and decisions are the things that lead to businesses getting built and value getting created. I think the main thing that these things are good at is exactly that. It's like the components to communication. And I swear it's happening all over the world already today, where human being has a concept and they would normally spend an hour to write an email, but they have ChatGPT do it. And it writes like a really good email they're happy with, that they refine a little, and they send it in 5 minutes, and there's 55 minutes saved. And then the recipient sees it and normally wouldn't have been able to respond for 5 days because they can't read all these emails in their inbox, and they paste it into ChatGPT and they say, what does this person want? What are they trying to say? And it translates it in a way where, just like, because of the conventions of how humans interact and do business, it would not have been appropriate for person A to have just verbal diarrheaed their thoughts into an email and sent it over. It provides this API for human communication that wickedly shortens up the creation and the consumption pieces, and then shortens cycles. And because of these faster cycles, more can get done more quickly. You can create more outcomes. People are more effective. So, like, this is where, if you're like sitting in your role and your boss somewhere has told you, like, hey, can you, do more AI stuff? Can you AIify your job? I would look at communication. Um, and I would look at the core of how you receive things, how you organize your thoughts, how you report out. And in the world of like actual software engineering, like, your form of communication might be product documents and keeping things top of mind and information organization in your brain. Unfortunately, you get to use this stuff to literally write code too, if that translation layer is tight enough and you're good enough at overseeing the chaotic nature of these things in code writing. So, like, it's a beautiful, scary, and powerful thing, but that's when I think about how I've 10x'd myself, I'm just not spending nearly as much time thinking about how to best articulate some idea. I'm getting back to more of like a core, almost instinctual, this is the direction that I want to go in. Let's spin up the ability to motivate the behaviors of large numbers of people, be it customers or employees or the market at large or some Gartner analysts that I'm going to pitch to. And everything's just more than 10 times faster. And frankly, it's working better. It's
Yeah.
working better.
Yeah, I think that's so true. Even just the prototype example I gave, I'm actually not even starting in a prototyping tool. I'm starting in ChatGPT, and I'm like, "Hey, take
Yeah.
what we just casually talked about for the past 30 minutes, create a prompt of what I want based on that conversation for me to put into a prototyping tool and then spit it out." Like, most of what I do with AI is find me this information and organize it in a way that I can comprehend and consume quickly. Or I think one of my most popular prompts last year was like, tailor this to X audience, right? Is it either the team, the whole company, maybe it's, just the exec team, maybe it's you, Bob. And yeah, I think it's really, really powerful and like getting the context you need and then giving it in the right context, communicating it back out in the right context as well. So yeah.
That's why you sent me so many 2x2 matrices with RJ metrics references in them last year. It does.
Yeah, yeah,
You're speaking
exactly.
my language.
Venn
This is
diagram.
great. We're running up on time here. I think this provides a really fun grounding for what we can do in future episodes. We'll have a guest occasionally. Most of the time, I think it might just be chats like this one. But what we'll try to do is also make them super topical and timely to what's going on in the world of the AI and ecosystems and the intersection of those. So more to come. But thanks to whoever listened to episode 1 here, and onward we go.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, listener.
Hi, Mom.